was a weird realization. Oh, okay. Larissa's back.
Yay.
Here.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi just zonked out, so I'm gonna use my phone as a hotspot. So perfect, all perfect. Let me see other people. Yep, it looks like they're in. So
I just let everybody in, Larissa.
Oh.
It said I was the leader once you got kicked out.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Moderator.
While you were gone, we renamed the Lovecraft bookstore in Reading. We were in the midst of doing it now.
Oh yes,
Yeah. It's a Reading McRead face. That's what we're gonna name it.
Highly original.
Yeah.
Well, since we've got plenty of people, as far as I can see, most if not all of the registrants, why don't we get it underway? Zin E, Rocklyn, would you like to? I'm just going to go in alphabetical order unless anyone has any objections.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So perfect. And I'm not going to waste anyone's time with giving introductions of basically, if you have something to say about the, piece that you're about to read, that's great. But I'm going to be posting everyone's bios in the chat if people want to connect and look you up on a, beyond the Amazon Eagle Empire. That's even better. So
yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we get underway now? Zin, would you like to introduce your piece in any way?
Sure. Basically, this is a very rough draft of a new piece that I've been working on for years that I finally finished. So I'm kind of using you guys as an experiment here. I'm only gonna read a part of it. So, but it's called Tête fait mal, which is basically headache in Creole. So, but that's basically it.
Sounds
And I can
sweet.
start whenever.
Hey, go for it. We're recording.
All right, cool. Tête fait mal. She hissed as the blunted nail slipped under, then lifted the fresh scab, tearing at the surrounding flesh before coming completely away. Shit. The fibrous patch was still under the nail of her middle finger when she looked at it, along with a little blood. Shuddering, she flicked it off into the sink, and her other hand gingerly pressing against the now open wound at the back of her head. God damn it. Small droplets of blood stained her fingers. She rinsed them and opened the medicine cabinet, pulling them Curachrome and a fresh Band-Aid. She quickly cleaned the cut and the area surrounding it, then bandaged it, immediately returning the packages to the cabinet once done. She closed the mirrored door, and her eyes met her reflection head-on. She normally avoided glances longer than necessary, but the stinging at the back of her skull made her pause. Brown on brown, plain-faced and ordinary, thick lips, wide nose, unpretty. Her shoulder sagged. The wound began to throb. She reached back into the cabinet and popped 2 headache pills, swallowing them dry quickly. She slammed the door shut and walked out of the bathroom without catching her reflection once again. What happened to your head? She stopped pressing against the Band-Aid, a way to scratch via pressure instead of repeating this morning, and went back to typing with both hands. Hit it somewhere. Girl, you are forever hurting yourself. Her coworker entered the cubicle and leaned against the file pedestal. You okay? You get checked? It's just a cut. She shrugged, kept typing. Her coworker swung closer, too close, then hesitated, and she felt a shift in the air. Her skin grew warm to the change, her right hand halting above the keys, fingers stiffening, nose sensitive to the soft scent wafting towards her. And just as quickly, the moment passed, and her coworker began speaking again. Anton's calling a meeting in 10. She nodded, eyebrows furrowed as the memory of the moment passed again, and again, and again. See you there, girl. Coworker left. She began typing again. She stopped at the market before heading home, picking up a small steak, one potato, and a small head of broccoli. For not the first time, she thought of getting a cat while she unlocked her apartment door. Dogs were too much responsibility. Maybe she'd luck out with a feline who gave a shit. The thought faded as she salted and peppered the steak, leaving it on the counter while she undressed from her work clothes and slipped on a pair of gray sweatpants and a crisp white t-shirt. She returned to the kitchen and set about preparing her simple dinner: baked potato, steamed broccoli, medium rare steak. She ate at the table, no music, no television, no book to distract her. This was her life, no reason to hide from it. She cleaned up the dishes, changed her bandage, brushed her teeth, and slipped into bed, naked. She awoke the next morning before her alarm with blood on her pillow. Her hand immediately went to the back of her head. The bandage was still loosely attached to the stray hairs growing in from the close shave, but soaked through, heavy. She sat up and fingered the glue strips until they fell away, the tip of her pointer finger sinking into the wound. She gasped and pulled away, pain skittering across the inside of her chest. After a few deep breaths, she stood from the bed and walked to the bathroom with measured steps, her throat bobbing in an attempt to swallow the panic. Her eyes avoided her face as she set about awkwardly examining the dry blood on her neck and shoulders, though it covered much of her skin. There hadn't been much shed. She quickly rinsed her hands and began gently pressing the area around where the original cut had been. First contact, and she was hissing and pulling away. The area of tenderness had grown 3 times in size, along with the cut itself. She shut her eyes and inhaled through her nose. This is fine. You're fine. Ignoring the flash of pain, she decided to get ready for the day. Once showered and dressed, she covered the wound with a larger band-aid and left her apartment. She didn't spare her face one glance. The cut had been merely a nick along the lambdoid suture, rather, sorry. The barber was new and his hands unsteady. Samul had suffered a minor heart attack at the night before, leaving the shop squandering during its half off Tuesday. She was as frugal as she was quiet, and though she had been shaped up by Samuel for the last 6 years, 3 months, and 10 days since she went natural, she allowed the new young man to clean up her sides, line her up, and trim the back. She trimmed too far, effectively shaving her head. She didn't mind starting over. There were worse fates for a black woman's hair against being temporarily bald, but it irked her still. Her irritation worried the young man as he desperately tried to clean up the patches he'd shaved into her hair. So much so he cut too far, nicking her hard. He apologized. She rejected it softly, though her eyes pinned him in the mirror. It wasn't until the covering manager, Samul's partner Fawad, came rushing over, cursing the young boy in French and cleaning up the back of her head with a fresh napkin, did she finally release him from her harsh gaze. She didn't pay for the shape up and was told her next cut would be free as well. Samul would make it up to her, Fawad promised, and his eyes pleading with her not to sue. She nodded her acceptance of this arrangement, gathered her things, and left the shop, but not before looking back and seeing the young man smiling at her. You need to get that shit checked. She started, her hands on her breastplate as she released a slow breath. The pain in her head was worsening, the dull and steady throb ramping up to be a consistent ache. She had been squeezing her temples with one hand, hoping the pressure would alleviate the pain until 4 pills she'd popped kicked in. Neither were working, and her patience was thin. Girl, you okay? She looked up to see the same coworker frowning down at her, her soft eyes bright with concern. Soft brown eyes bright with concern. She nodded. Yeah, just a bit of a headache. Are you sure you don't have a concussion? She frowned, then remembered the lies she told the day before. She didn't know why she'd lied. The truth was simple and acceptable enough, yet now she was trapped within it, garnering more interest than she would have liked. She nodded weakly. Yeah, I'm sure. I got checked. Just a little cut. Her coworker pursed her lips. Yeah, well, that cut is flowing down your back like the Mississippi. What? She turned awkwardly within her seat, attempting to catch a glimpse of the collar of her shirt. Her periphery caught a bit of crimson towards the center of the fold. Shit, she hissed. You have another shirt? Just that quickly, she'd forgotten her coworker was there. Her irritation at being reminded was apparent on her face, making her coworker shift away from her, just slightly. She relaxed. No, not here. Well, maybe you should go home, or better yet, call your doctor. She nodded, but planned to do neither of those before the day's end. Sure, I'm serious, Sadie. It was like a knitting needle had been stabbed straight into her ear canal, her entire body seizing an impact, shoulder lifting to the lobe, her right eye shutting tight. A high-pitched wail attacked the other ear, the sound burrowing at the roots of her molars, digging deep and hard into her jaw and locking it tight against her upper mandible. The scream locked deep within her throat. All she could manage was a strained sigh as she threw her head back. Attempts to open her eyes fruit nothing but fluttering lids, and orbs rolled back so hard, flashes of white obscured the dark. Then for a brief moment she floated, her body lifting from the chair, her feet no longer flat on the ground. For that brief moment her headache eased, the pain slipped away, and the screech became a song. She felt her lips curve into a smile. She felt the sigh of relief slip past her sealed mouth, felt her entire body relax, then falling, then nothing. I think I'll stop there.
That's super cool. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Now, I don't know if I misheard this. This is excerpt from a longer work.
Yes, this is an excerpt from a long work.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'd be psyched to ask you more about your studies, but I think that should be more for like the Q&A session afterwards.
Sure.
So as far as I can tell, Jaya Prakash has not managed to tune in yet. So Paul, if you don't mind,
Sure.
we go right to you.
Yeah. Okay. I have to switch glasses.
Oh,
I
yeah,
can't do
empathize.
bifocals.
Me knew. I need to go like this if I want to see.
Yeah.
Go
All
for
right.
it, Paul.
Sure. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Zin. Awesome reading as always. It amazes me like just how intense all your work feels just like after the opening two lines. I'm like already like, oh. And if all of you out there haven't already bought and read her Flowers for Flowers for the Sea, please do so. It's excellent. Okay. So I'm going to read for my forthcoming novel. It's coming out this summer called The Pallbearers Club. I'm laughing. It's a strange novel. We'll just say that. And hopefully it mixes some humor and horror. I hope the funny parts are funny and the horror parts of the horror. But anyway, so I'm going to jump in at like page 33. The setup is this novel is being presented as a found memoir of a character who calls himself Art Barbara. And this is a reading in Providence, even though it's virtual, but I found the name Art Barbara on wallpaper in what used to be, oh my gosh, what's the name of the hotel? It used to be the Biltmore. What's it called now? Larissa, what's it called now?
As far as I know, it's still got the Biltmore.
It's got a different name though.
Yeah, it's got a different name. I don't
Oh,
remember the
wow,
name now.
It's like the
So
collection or yeah.
They didn't update that. It's like the Necro Hotel or something. I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah.
I guess I'll find out at Necronomicon.
Okay.
It's called.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I took the name Art Barbara from the wallpaper because like the rooms were done over in like hipstery kind of wallpaper. It was like a fake library. Some of the books like paint on the wallpaper were real and some of them were fake. And I sort of like
that.
The Graduate. Yes, there we go. Thank you, Carol. I just remember, because I mean, living in New England, to me, like the name Art Barbara with our accent just sounds so funny to me, like Art Barbara. Yeah. Anyway, so the first line of the book is, I am not Art Barbara. My description is going to be longer than my reading. So it's someone who names himself Art Barbara for the purposes of this memoir. And it starts in the fall of 1998. So poor Art, is he's a senior in high school. He has no friends. He's painfully skinny. very much keeps to himself. And in his desperation to get out of his town, he realizes, he does pretty well in school, but he doesn't have any extracurricular activities. So he starts what's called the Pallbearers Club, where he volunteers at a local funeral home to serve elderly or homeless who don't have any living relatives. And because he doesn't have very many friends, he's only able to get like one or two other kids to join. So this picks up at the second time that they're serving someone who passed away. So this scene is Art, and it's Mr. Stevens, who runs the funeral home, Kayla, who's the only other high school student that's doing the club with Art. And this is the Saturday that a strange young woman, I should say, named Mercy joins the club. And Mercy shows up at the funeral home dressed like an 80s punk. She's got like a green field jacket on, covered in punk band patches and pins. And she's taking, she has a Polaroid with her, and she's taking photographs at sort of weird times. Okay, that's enough preamble, I think. All right, so I'm going to jump in. Mr. Stevens said, "You're more than welcome to stow your photos and gear." Mercy said, "I'd prefer not to." He added, "While I wouldn't say you're inappropriately dressed, Mercy, I wonder if you don't happen to have a dress or a pair of slacks in that shoulder bag." Kayla and I were wearing the same clothes we wore 2 weeks ago. Mr. Stevens waved a palm up hand in our direction. We were the models of dressing appropriately, though his hand was disappointed in us too. It was a look what I have to work with hand. Mercy said, "A black sweater with no holes is as good as I get." Fair enough, and I'm not throwing fashion stones in anyone's direction. As long as you're comfortable, I'm grateful for your presence. Mr. Stevens wheeled on a squeaking leather shoe and led us through a curling hallway to a viewing room, the one named Midnight Wish. Kayla latched onto my arm and yanked me back, allowing the others to go ahead. Mercy snapped pictures of the walls and ceiling, each flash a bit of lightning, foretelling larger storms to come. She dropped the grade developing photos into empty chairs. Kayla whispered, "Do you know her?" I hesitated to answer, partly because her stage whisper echoed. "How'd she know about the club? Oh, was it your flyers?" "Yes. No. I sent the flyer, but she's a friend of my cousin, Jennifer, graduated in '85. She's a senior in college up at Bates." Why do we think added details make something sound less like a lie? Kayla gave me a naked, unprotected, or unvarnished look. Less "I'm on to you" than, "Oh, now I know who you are." She said, "What's her deal with the pictures?" "I don't know." Mr. Stevens called us into the room. The new and improved Pallbearers Club gathered by the casket, behind which was an assortment of potted plants, not flowers. Inside the gunmetal gray coffin was an old dead man wearing a cream-colored burial suit. He was bald, but for cotton candy tufts of white I'm not going to say this right, cumulonimbusing the horizon of his Jurassic ears. Jaundiced wallpaper skin displayed a complex pattern of liver spots on his forehead. His hands were a pile of sticks and stones. While my head buzzed with fascination and an urge to flee the room, I was not nearly as affected mentally or physically at the viewing of his body as I had been by Kathleen Blanchette's the week before. And I'm not sure why. Perhaps this was what I always imagined a dead body would look like. And I did appreciate his suit. It read as cheerful to me. I snuck a look at Mercy and Kayla, both shuddered inside their own heads, and I was reminded we are always alone. Just going to pause there for a second. So Mercy as a character, can you see it? Mercy as a character starts leaving comments in the margins sometimes because she's reading this. She said, "So gloomy." Mr. Stevens cleared his throat and announced the ceremony was about to begin. He pulled out a letter from inside his jacket, and almost as an afterthought, he told me to stop slouching. I wanted to smart aleck back at him, that I'd straighten my crooked spine if I could. Instead, I mumbled sorry, and I faux unslouched, briefly lifting onto my toes before sinking back to my regular defensive posture. I conceded he was probably correct in his accusation, though as I was suddenly feeling extra slouchy, like I was actively shrinking or shriveling. Mr. Stevens said, "At the request of the deceased, the brief ceremony consists solely of the following reading. The gentleman we are seeing off this afternoon is Mr. Tom Jones. He died 92 years young." Mr. Stevens levered his giant glasses off his face and onto his forehead. He squintily read from a single sheet of paper. "Life and death have taken turns being cruel to Mr. Jones. His beloved wife and partner, Linda, died in 1966 of colon cancer, and their daughter, Donna, died 4 years ago due to the same insufferable, greedy illness. Despite having his heart shattered twice, Mr. Jones stubbornly, if not foolishly, went on living. If hope is believing there will be one more moment of joy, then despair is knowing there was a final one. A click, flash, and whir. Mercy snapped a photo of Mr. Jones's body. He specified no photography during the ceremony, Mr. Stevens said, without missing a beat. Mercy said, "You're making that up." "I am not." He flashed the typed page at Mercy, but did not hold it out long enough for it to be read. She plunked the photo onto the kneeler. Mr. Stevens continued reading. "Mr. Jones is survived by everyone else. However, none of those people are immediate family members. Someone must always finish last. Mr. Jones wishes to specify he was named after the eponymous protagonist of the farcical novel published in 1749. While he enjoyed the impishly handsome Albert Finney's performance in the film, he thought the screenplay was a bit too bawdy. If anyone would care to respond, please do so now." I stammered something about his being at peace. Kayla said, "I hope he's with Linda and Donna." "I liked Albert Finney and Wolfen," Mercy said. Mercy has another comment on the side here. "I might have said that to you at some point, but not at the end of the ceremony. You make me sound like an uncaring asshole." We ferried the casket to the hearse, a winding trip that went smoothly, if not quickly, as we didn't have to contend with lugging the deceased down any stairs. Once the coffin glided down the tracked gullet of the hearse and the rear door closed, I cracked my knuckles and rolled my neck like a preening weightlifter, making a show of how little physical exertion was expended. The hearse driver still asked if I was okay and offered me half of his mustard slathered sandwich. I told the man I was fine, and I didn't want or need a sandwich. Kayla drifted away into the parking lot with barely an audible bye. She moved too quickly for me to ask for a ride, or to do so without being a self-conscious, awkward dweeb. I asked Mr. Stevens if I could use the phone, and he told me there was one in a small office opposite the entrance of Melancholy Sunrise. I headed back into the funeral home, pausing briefly in the foyer, trying to remember if I'd find the sunrise to the right or left. "Hey, can I give you a lift?" Mercy commenting again on the side. "Lift? Did I step out of a hard-boiled detective novel?" Startled, I spun until I completed 2 circles, but she was not behind me. The front door was closed. I was in the foyer by myself. I sputtered unconnected syllables until I mustered a weak, "Sorry, what?" Mercy didn't answer, nor did anyone else. Was she checking out the other rooms by herself? After all, she had been late and never got the tour from Mr. Stevens. But if she was exploring, wouldn't I hear her camera going off? What would stop her from taking photos now? No, she said she can give me a lift. Maybe she was attempting to trick me into searching for her, and she was hiding, pressed flat against a wall, or she crouched in a corner, creeping in a shadowed spot near a closed coffin. And then she'd jump out and take a picture of the scared shitless me. I'd only been exposed to her for about 15 minutes, but I thought she was fully capable of doing something like that. Enough time passed that I questioned what I heard or how I heard it. Was it possible she was outside and walking to her car because I didn't answer her in time? I couldn't get rid of the image of her hiding on me, and my thoughts turned to Mercury in the quiet of the funeral home, its mortal hum of silence, a frequency I couldn't hear and instead felt in my tightening chest and tingling scalp. Okay, maybe I didn't need to find the phone and I'd just walk home. No need to get all worked up, get all fuzzy again. Did Mr. Stevens leave or was he still out front? To my right, Mercy backed out of the foyer closet, wrestling her coat away from bulky wooden hangers, 2 of which clattered to the floor. Deadpan, she said, "Monster in there, wouldn't let me go." Did you get a picture of it?" A good line, but there was no commitment to the delivery. Not this time. She looked away as she climbed into her coat, suddenly pensive, mourning the missed shot. I edged away toward the front door and rattled it open. "Yeah, okay, well, thanks again for coming, and do you want a ride or not?" The 2012 me. I wonder if this is another one of near infinite life path choosing moments. One that at the time seems the smallest, least impactful, most forgettable, but is in fact the opposite. The problem with those kinds of moments is they're impossible to recognize in situ. And when excavating the self in retrospect, you pick at the lost and irreparable moments that might be false positives because you can't be sure if this was a moment where everything changed, where everything to come after was written, but for the minor details. Regardless, you keep digging. I've spent years digging into this moment in the foyer. Maybe if I told her I didn't need a ride, she would have quit the pallbearers club. and I would have never seen her again, and my life from that point would become someone else's. This is not regret, as there is not remorse, not exactly. A wish of foreknowledge, perhaps. The 2017 me. In giving one last read through before I abandon the manuscript, I continue mining the cavernous pit into which I was led, and I'm in so deep, I no longer see any light, and there's only more digging. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Great, Paul, thank you. My Zoom is a little wacky. A lot of my keyboard shortcuts have died. So, so what I've done is I've emailed and Facebook messaged Jay Prakash, but I also know that, full disclosure, he's at the opposite end of the world. So there may be issues in that general area, and maybe he'll, I hope he'll be joining us, but this, you know, not to make this a short reading, I mean, knock on wood, Jay Prakash will be able to tune in, but I want to leave it open to questions from the audience now. Now, I don't have the raise hand option on my keyboard anymore. If anyone wants to just say, either raise your hand with Zoom or put your name in the chat and I'll unmute you. Really, I'm sorry to be under primitive circumstances, but then I had a Wi-Fi outage and first world problems, basically.
Hmm.
So, we want to leave it open to Q&A now if people want to chime in at all. Does anybody have any questions for our
Yeah, I'll start us off. Can I ask Zin a question?
Yeah, please. Yes.
So Zin, do you know, is the piece you read from, do you know how long it will be? Do you have an idea if it's going to be novella, novel? Not sure, just going with it?
Just going with it for now. It's
Yeah.
definitely a short story. For now, like it's at 5,200, I think, and I haven't finished. But you know how like that is, where it more than likely is going to expand. My beta readers have come back and said that, you know, there's some expansion that needs to happen. So,
Okay.
but it looks like it's going to be, I think it's going to be a short story. I don't think it's going to be any longer than that.
Oh, okay. So, all right. I for some reason, I didn't realize you had a full draft of it already completed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Coolness. Oh, it looks like Carol has a question. Can you see and hear us, Carol?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please go
Cool.
ahead. Please.
Well, I just have a quick question for Paul. How do you feel about writing in a book like that? Is that good? Is that a bad? Is that a sin against the book? Do you make notes in your own pages? How do you feel about it?
That's funny. I don't do a lot of notes myself, like when I'm reading. Sometimes I do. But no, to me, that was like part of the fun of writing the book, was having this character who finds this. So Mercy, at the end of every chapter, she sort of has like a rebuttal, and then like she can't help herself and ends up like, you know, making the comments, which, you know, I hope is fun for the reader, but I also hope people, you know, hope it's there for a reason. I just don't want it to be a gimmick. So I don't know. I'm always a sucker for a fun kind of narrative technique that isn't used all the time. You know, so for me, the trick is coming up with a good reason to use it. Like it has to be there for a reason. I don't want it just to be like, you know, cheap window dressing. Yeah.
Or expensive window dressing? No, it seems really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm looking
Thanks.
forward to seeing what it comes out like. It's very clever. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I guess last thing I'd say, my publisher, I'm really excited they're going to do this for the first edition hardcover. They said they're going to print it in 2-color ink.
Oh, cool.
So Mercy's,
That'll help.
Mercy's comments will be in red. You know, obviously the rest of the book will be in black ink. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Listen, can they highlight some in yellow? Because that would be really cool too.
I don't think they'll do the yellow.
Okay.
But yeah, I wasn't expecting the red, honestly. That was like, they said, I'm like, oh, great. Do it.
Cool.
That's super great. Thanks, Carol. It looks like John is our next Q&A person.
Yeah, same question. Hi, Paul. I was just wondering what kind of production issues that caused having the handwriting, you know, whether in the printed work or in the electronic work. I mean, did you get pushback from the publisher says, oh, we can't do that, you know, or was it pretty straightforward?
I tried to warn them, so I mean, I told my editor way back when I pitched the book idea to her, because I was off book deal, she wanted to work with me again, but I had to come up with a partial and an outline. So I said, hey, I think this is going to be a thing that happens in the book. And I think she was like, yeah. So when I handed in, I think super initially, there was like a few questions like, do we have to do it this way? And I was pretty insistent, but they never like really said, no, we can't. Once she was like, okay, once she had read it, I think it made sense to her. They were all in. And I haven't seen it yet, but they did say for the ebooks too, that it's gonna be that way as well, which I didn't think would be possible.
Yeah.
So we'll
Cool.
see. I'm happy. Yeah, I thought for the ebook, they might have to do footnotes or something, which is fine. I don't know, like I don't read a lot of ebooks. So I'm always I always think about the hardcover book first. So I'm always trying to serve that. Sorry, ebook readers. I'm not judging you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Not everyone's Zoom is the same Zoom, I think. So I think I hope I don't butcher your first name, the pronunciation. Orphany has a question. There you are. Do you have
You got it. Don't
sorry.
worry.
Could you
Um,
please pronounce your first name, because that's a really cool name.
Yes, it is Orphany. You got it correct, or at least that's how I pronounce it. I actually have a question for Zin. So my mother's side of the family is Creole and Choctaw, and I think it is always so cool to see Creole representation in fiction. And I was just wondering, in your research or in your writing process, what's been your favorite part? Because I just, picked up on that inspiration for your character in integrating that cultural aspect into your storytelling.
Well, my background is Trinidadian, so I'm always like really um like that was my first introduction to speculative fiction, to be honest with you. Like the weird characters like the Duen and Sukiyon and La Bless and things like that. Like those really creepy stories to keep you in line as a kid really fascinated me. So I always kind of wanted to look at other islands and see what similarities we may have. And I've always been fascinated with Creole and wanted to learn Creole. As a kid, I used to speak patois, but I don't remember any of it anymore. Which really, it seems like I don't have the brain for languages. I barely can speak English. So, but I definitely just love Creole and love the culture around it and love the Haitian culture. So I ask friends. Asked a lot of questions of my friends, probably way too many questions of my friends, and did my research as well. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
no problem. Thank you.
That's super cool. Now, Zin, I've got a question of my own. You don't need to disclose this. You could just say no. But I was wondering what you're currently studying in grad.
I'm actually currently studying creative writing with the intention to teach. So, yeah.
That rules. That rules. And you totally kick at it.
Man, I would so want to have you as a teacher. That'd be amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Paul, yourself a teacher, but with
No one wants to have me as a teacher because I teach math and I'm mean.
but that's what I mean is like I can barely do basic arithmetic, so you're like the algebra whiz. So it makes sense. All right, does anybody else have anything they would like to ask our people? I noticed some familiar names here. Don't be shy. I'm sorry if it's just two readers tonight, but Carol, do you still have a follow-up question or anything? I'm not seeing I'm just seeing a raised hand here. So
Oh, I think I forgot to take my hand down. But
Oh.
actually, I was wondering a question for Zin now. That was a very vivid image, with the haircut and such. What's it going to feel like next time you go get a haircut?
It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel weird. When I started writing the story, I had much shorter hair, and it just like the
And you're
shudders that went down my back was just like, I was like, oh, this is bad. I'm never
you're never
getting a
gonna cut
haircut
it again.
again. Yes, never getting my haircut again.
Well, clearly that means the scene worked. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
That's so great, Carol. Thank you. I myself, my hair is gonna get caught in car doors if I'm not careful. I think by summer, actually, hopefully by a couple of weeks from now, yeah, I need to, it's not like Rapunzel kind of territory. So, oh geez, I feel a bit remiss. I haven't heard back from Jay Prakash, so um, there could be outages out where he is, but does anybody else want to, I mean, Paul, do you want to tell us more about your year ahead? Like, what are your plans?
Oh, sure. And then I have a question for Zin. And then Kim's got a question. Oh, year ahead, geez. Well, the book comes out July 5th. So yeah, I'm still not sure, like in-person event. I mean, I hope there's in-person stuff. I'll find out more next week. We have like a meeting with, publicist and editor and stuff to talk about what's going to be what. I don't know, but like, everything, everything in the world is sort of up in the air. Like even like in the small world of publishing, there's still issues with the printer. Like I know, a couple of good friends whose books have been pushed back because there's basically one working printer now in the United States. So I don't know, just hopeful that the book can make it out. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I guess those are just the general plans to hopefully do, some sort of promoting if it's online or if it's in person.
No, that's super cool. I mean, I heard I heard some rumblings about a supply line shortage. It wasn't just because of the blockade up in Ottawa.
Right.
There are a number of factors in what's happening. So
Yeah.
we're just kind of rolling with the punches here.
Right.
And I see a hand up from Kevin, my friend. It's been a while since I saw him.
I know it's been ages.
Yeah. Would you?
How's it going?
Would you like to ask us some questions?
Yes, I know Paul talked about kind of like upcoming and promoting the book and stuff, which I can't wait to read the book. But I'm wondering for both writers, like what is coming up in terms of like are you working on anything new in terms of like your creative writing? Are you working on like a new book or like a new story in addition to working on what you're currently working on or or promoting at this time?
Paul?
Sure. I'm just grabbing a link to something. So I have a short story collection due to my publisher. It's due in May. I'm pretty much done. Like my goal was this year to write like an original novella for the collection. So my publisher doesn't know this yet. We'll see. We'll see how they react to it. But the short story collection is going to be called The Beast You Are. And the title novella is 30,000 words. And it's about anthropomorphic animals, maybe a rabbit or two's in, sorry. Anthropomorphic animals with a giant monster and a slasher, and it's written in free verse, the freest of all possible verse. Basically, I took my love for Watership Down, Animal Farm, in a novel called Sharp Teeth, and try to smush it all together. So yeah, I didn't tell my editor yet. It's in free verse. I mean, I am not a poet. It's basically just me writing prose and just moving, some bits and pieces around somewhat. I have to admit, it was a lot of fun writing. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. Like it was like cackling to myself. Because usually I don't know like how you feel about writing, Zin, but for me, it's like, it's hard. It's like, it's, I prefer it to my day job, but it's hard. Like I'll procrastinate, like, which is weird because then like when I don't write, I feel awful. Like after I write, I'm like, oh, I feel like I did something. It's like, why don't I just remember that every time instead of putting it off? But anyway, it's a long answer to a short question, Kevin. And I'll throw in the chat, like I actually had a short story come out online this week with USC's lit magazine called Airlight. And that just came out this week. I was going to save it for my collection, but the editor twisted my arm.
Cool.
That's super cool, Paul. Hey, I mean, a lot of people, I understand the whole procrastination thing because since I moved to Providence, my commute to the library job at Harvard has grown to 90 minutes to 2 hours each way.
Oof.
But it's like, it's a chance to listen to audiobooks and podcasts on my way to and from.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure how long it's because we've seen how gas prices have been going up incrementally. So,
Right.
it's a different sort of thing because Providence is so small. It's like nothing's really far from anywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's like you feel better having written, just getting over that hump.
Right.
So do we have any
Yeah, so I was going to ask really quickly,
Oh, yes,
sorry,
please, please.
because
Yes.
what I was going to ask Zen, sort of what Kevin was asking. So like he had asked what we're working on. So I mean, you're in school at the same time. So are you finding it harder to write and do school stuff, or what you're writing is sort of like associated with what you're studying?
So I'm kind of cheating a
Yeah.
little bit. I can't lie. I'm using school as like a way to like force myself to write.
Love it.
Because I'm the same way where I have this such a love-hate with writing that it's such a freeing experience to be writing. But then everything that leads up to it is such a pain in the ass.
Mhm.
So I totally understand. Like I procrastinate like crazy, and then just like you said, I feel better having finished writing something.
Mhm.
And while I'm writing something, I love it. I just pictured you cackling at your keyboard, and I'm pretty much the same way. It's like, yeah,
Sometimes, yeah.
the power. But as far as like what I'm working on now, I'm working on my second novella, which is a retelling of Cinderella if she were a queer Black mercenary. So I'm working on that right now, and several short stories at the same time. So yeah,
Excellent.
A lot of irons in the fire. Very good.
yeah.
That's excellent. I'm looking forward to everything. Absolutely. Any more audience participation here? Just checking it out. Don't be shy. Well, if no one's going to raise their hand, I am going to ask one more question of my own, just because it's something that kind of obsesses me. Of both writers, outlining or pantsing.
Oh,
Never asked this before.
I'm a pantser, which is bad.
No, it's not bad. I feel like most people are. Well, actually, I have no idea. I mean, there seems like a lot of even like novelists that surprise me when they say that they're pantsers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I do both. Like for short fiction, I don't outline. Sure. For probably most of my novels, I have some sort of outline. But like I didn't for this novella. I mean, I had a notebook and I kept notes, like a rough sketch of what I was going to do. But I don't know. I try to make it like as sort of we both been talking about, like getting ourselves into the chairs. I mean, honestly, excuse me, at this point, sometimes you have to find personal ways either to motivate you or to get you back into the chair. And one of the things I do for me is I try to make everything I do for that particular story, try to fool myself like, oh, this is slightly different because this is for this story. This is what this story needs. And it's a weird balance. It's like I want to like be able to like, oh, I've done this before. I'll actually finish this, because it doesn't feel like, especially the longer pieces, that you'll ever be finished. So I don't know. I guess I've done both, but I probably lean more towards the plotting.
That's great. Yeah, sometimes you need a roadmap. Sometimes just it's spontaneous. So that makes sense to me. That's great.
Carol did ask Paul if you're going to SofaCon.
Oh, I'm not. It's just a hard time of the school year for me. Late May, and that's like when final exams are coming up, and this summer I'm hoping there's going to be some travel. I'm actually supposed to be, I shouldn't say supposed to be, I'm an invited guest to a convention in the north of Spain in late July, which is unbelievable.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah, they're having like a whole bunch of amazing writers there. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget the list, but I know Stephen Graham Jones is supposed to be there too. So, so I know like I've got some big travel coming, hopefully knock on wood this summer. So yeah, sorry, no StokerCon this year. Hopefully next year. Where do they know where it is next year? Bring it back to Providence
I know, for
so I
real.
can drive to it.
Yeah, it'll be in Denver, and I need to get my plane ticket.
Yeah, so do I. I'll be there. So
Oh, well, can we hang out and chill out?
of course,
Yeah.
of course.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be super good.
Oh, now I'm bummed.
I gotta pick your brain about whales. So, oh, we have a new question. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Jendi?
Hi, thanks. It was really great to discover your work, Zin, and Paul, A Head Full of Ghosts really scared me, and I read a lot of horror, so that just stuck with me, whether I wanted
Thank
or
you.
not. So it's really cool to hear you read. I was just wondering, for both of you, did you start out thinking you wanted to write horror at the same time as you became a fan of reading horror, or was it a long time before you realized you could also write in the genre as well as being a fan?
I'll jump in first. So for me, like I even came to reading, I think much later than most people, as we discussed earlier when Larissa talked about my algebra. I was I don't know, I wasn't a very what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't really explore much as a student, particularly in high school. Like, I just wasn't a very confident kid. I did well. Math was always my best, so I just stuck with it. I just watched a lot of TV, watched a lot of MASH reruns when I came home from school. Yeah, so it wasn't until I went to graduate school where two things sort of happened. Like I sort of found my way into an English class, like literally English 101 as the second semester senior in college. And in that class, like the teacher was awesome. He was a punk music fan, so I connected with him. But in that class, I read Joyce Carol Oates' Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? And I'll never forget reading that story and going, oh, I didn't know people wrote things like this. And shortly after that, when I graduated, my girlfriend, who's, Lisa is my wife and has been for a while, bought me Stephen King's The Stand for my 22nd birthday. So then I went away they sent me away to the woods of Vermont for 2 years to get my math master's. But those 2 years, I just read all the King, and from his Dance Macabre, I found like Shirley Jackson and Clive Barker and Peter Straub. And so at the end of those 2 years, I had this weird itch to try writing a story, totally inexplicable because I'd never done anything like that before. And I don't know. So writing was very much a hobby for the first like 5 years, but I don't know, I just kind of stuck with it. And I can't really explain why. I obviously had some sort of want for a creative outlet, but it certainly served something that that fed me, yeah. How about I want to hear the Zin origin story.
So my origin story is kind of similar to Octavia Butler's in the sense that where she saw Devil Girls from Outer Space and was like, oh, I could do better than that. I had read some Stephen King. I know that's blasphemous, and I was like, I could write Black characters better than that. And I wasn't seeing a lot of Black women in horror at all. So I just wanted to see myself. I absolutely fell in love with horror. My brother wanted to traumatize me, but he entertained me instead by showing me Nightmare on Elm Street. And when I was about 4, and I loved it. And from that point on, it was like R.L. Stine, Fear Street, and then from Fear Street, I went to Douglas Clegg, and then went to Clive Barker, and absolutely fell in love with Clive Barker. So it was basically like I wanted to see Black women in horror, and more I met other Black women and Black girls who loved horror and just wanted to see ourselves in it. And I think I wrote my first fan fiction when I was about 9, and then started writing original stories when I was 12, but I didn't take it seriously until I was actually in college for film and media studies, and I took a creative writing class just to get some credits. And the professor swore up and down that I plagiarized my submission. So I was like, oh wow, maybe I am that good. That's great. So I kind of took it as a compliment. So that's when I started kind of seriously writing for myself, and much later got published. So yeah.
That's a good thing to flip around to kind of a racist or very problematic comment from your teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
I always think it's a great compliment to a writer when you're like, your book makes me want to write something. I think I love that, because sometimes I would read something and think, oh, I should not even want to write because that's so good, and then I think, would I want someone to say that about my writing? No, I want them to say, oh, that's great, I want to write something, or that's terrible, I want to write something better. Either way you win. Either way you've inspired someone.
And it's like with Stephen King, like he is such a good writer. Like his world is so absorbing, that I was like, hell yes, but it'd be better with Black people. That's kind of where I stood.
Absolutely.
I love hearing the Clive love, because I wish he would get more sort of talk.
Right.
I don't feel like he gets enough credit. Like when I first read him, that was like the first time I didn't feel safe.
Right.
I was
right?
like, whoa, yeah, this guy. Yeah.
Books of Blood,
Yeah.
volume 1 through 3. Like I remember just curiously picking it up, and I remember that's like, I would think I was 15, and my mom, oh yeah, Douglas Clegg is great. I actually read his Neverland, and I remember reading a piece of it to my mom, and she was like, I should have read that before you did. And she didn't do anything about it though. But then it was Books of Blood, and I legit had to put on my nightlight back again, because I was so freaked out.
Do either one of you have a favorite Books of Blood story? Hate to put you on the spot, but
Dread.
Yeah.
Dread. Yeah. Dread is my favorite.
It's got one of the best openings. That's got a Shirley Jackson Haunting of Hill House level opening.
Yes.
It really does. Paul, I don't suppose favorite?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Rawhead Rex was the story that was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I am not safe with him. But my favorite is In the Hills of Cities. And when reading it as a much younger, person in his 20s, and then I recently reread it, age X now, and a totally sort of flipped perspective on it. It's just a genius piece of work.
I think Books of Blood really was a game changer for many horror writers moving forward, or didn't even know they were horror writers, or even horror fans moving forward. It was just really, really, truly was. A lot of the stories can be hit or miss, but maybe that's the point. Some just really glom onto you. Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's the monsters in Skins of the Fathers, or just a straight ahead slasher like Midnight Meat Train or something.
Yeah, that made me so nervous to fall asleep on the subway. And I'd fall asleep. I used to fall asleep all the time, and just know my stop, kind of a thing. And just but it was just like, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
or the whole martyr complex, like in Pig Blood Blues, where the dude busts his ass to save a kid. But yeah, spoilers, but doesn't turn out so well. Wow, I really want to. We've still got 11 people here. I really want to open this up and encourage people to engage in dialogue if they would still like to, but it's no pressure. We're at about the hour mark, and I've got like 90 minutes earmarked. So, does anyone want to ask even a more frivolous question than I just asked? Oh yeah.
What? That's awesome.
To others. Mine's over there. My configuration. Everyone really should read The Hellbound Heart, because that's a remarkable bit of print as well.
That's a damn good.
This is going to be like an awful brag, but I'm going to do it because it's really cool. But I'm like 95% sure that my publisher has signed Ashley Lawrence to read Mercy's parts for my audiobook.
Oh my God.
And she, starred in Hellraiser, obviously. Yeah, so cool.
That's awesome. I'd be
Yeah.
bragging about that
Yeah.
constantly. By the way, mom.
Yeah.
I know. Here, it's like it's Kirsty Cotton. It's like actually narrating that part of the book. She's
Yeah.
remarkable also in Red as like the battered wife. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's getting into some audio reading too. I think she might be reading Mallerman's book coming out this summer. I could be wrong about that, but yeah.
That'd rock. Huh. Well, I don't see any more raised hands. Would you both like to just in conclusion, just share anything else?
No, I mean, it's great to see everybody. Great to see you, Zin. Read Zin. She rocks.
Thank you. Read Paul. He's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry Jay Prakash couldn't show up. I didn't really hear back from him. So maybe in the fall, we'll try to add him again. And that'd be the coolest thing ever because he's awesome.
Yes.
But, yeah, there could be, well, just as I had, I'm glomming on my iPhone right now for
Right.
activity. So something could have happened, but I want to thank everyone for showing up and for reading. This is really cool. We've got, and Zin, I'm going to be emailing you as a follow-up because we really want everyone in the bookstore. Paul, I was in the bookstore today, so you're definitely on the shelf, as you but we want full representation of everyone across the board, and
Cool.
it's just crucial. And I'm really happy that everyone's showing up to these readings from the comfort of our own homes. And yeah, hopefully it can be in person soon, but we have to wait for this situation to be a little more less situational. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everyone. And yeah, we are almost to the hour mark. So I don't want to, if there are no more questions, I want to thank everyone for being here and participating and keeping the genre alive. Let's all onwards and upwards.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
All right, y'all. Love you. I'll see y'all soon, I hope.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.